Well, good evening to everyone. So thankful we have such a good turnout. In fact, we have some very surprising attendees tonight that I'll be talking about in just a minute. But most important of all, two things. One, there is no left and right in terms of the seating. Wherever you are is just fine. And the other thing is, I don't think we could have, at least in my lifetime, a more important election than we have coming up on November 8th. This is one of the reasons we wanted to be sure to do this forum, so you can get a look at those that are absolutely the closest to us in representation with the federal government. We're very thankful. All four of our candidates are here, and I'll be introducing them in just a few minutes. Also happy to announce that we have WTHU AM 450 The Source. Michael Betteridge is here, and we're going to be on the air tonight live. Live from Belmont. The visitors that I'm wanting to introduce first, we advertise this for North Frederick County. And guess what? We've got a number of attendees here tonight from Germany and Switzerland. You all stand up so we'll there's a lot of folks in this town that can relate to those countries, I'm sure you. Anyway, now I'd like to ask you to join me, please, in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag of our nation.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, we made sure that we seated our candidates tonight and put them on the program in alphabetical order. So we'll start with the introduction of Republican Party candidate Dan Cox. Stand up. We do have an applause meter, so the Democratic candidate Jamie Raskin. From the Green Party, Ms. Nancy Wallace. And from the Libertarian Party, Jason Wonder. At this time, I would ask you all to silence your cell phones, please, or whatever other electronic devices you might have, so we can get the show on the road. While you're doing that, I want to introduce one of our town commissioners, Marty Burns. Marty, stand up and wave at us, would you? He's also the past mayor of Vermont. And the other commissioner that's here is Wes Hamry. Where are you, Wes? And now it's my great pleasure to introduce to you, to welcome everybody, our great mayor, maybe mayor for life, John Kennard. His
Thank you, George. I just want to say, Marty, that's not mayor for life. I want to welcome you here, the Board of Commissioners and the residents of the town of Thurmont. Welcome you here this evening. I'm pleased as punch that our Lions Club does debates every single time you're elected. George, thank you on behalf of the town, and thank your organization. It's great to see a nice turnout. Our friends from Germany and Switzerland, was it? Yeah. Welcome to Thurmont. We were settled by Germans and Swiss, so we're right at home. I want to thank the four candidates for coming out this evening. We appreciate you coming to our small town, North Frederick County. We don't get a lot of press up here, but We're a very important area. I can assure you that we believe that with all of our hearts. I'm going to be leaving early tonight. I just want to make a quick announcement. George, may I make an announcement? I'm going to Solomon's Island tomorrow morning to accept the Sustainable Maryland Award for the town of Thurmont. And I want to publicly thank our green team for their hard effort and their hard work and their dedication to seeing that we get the Sustainability Award. And with that being said, I'll turn it back over to George, and thank you very much. Have a good evening.
In case you need to know, the restrooms are right outside that door, and there's a water fountain out there too on this side of the auditorium. And I want to take a moment now to stop and ask you all to join me. Today we lost one of our most devoted and loved Lions. He's a great member that has been a great member of this community, and he passed away at Frederick Memorial Hospital this morning. His name is Larry Mundy, and I would ask you all to please help me observe a moment of silence. Thank you. And I also want to take just a moment to thank Mark Long and Wes Hamrick, John Hart, who is our timekeeper. I'll be introducing him in a minute. Brother Glenn was back there welcoming you, and let me just mention something about Brother Glenn. He is one of the finest people I've ever known. He's 91 and a half years old, and he couldn't wait to get here to greet you tonight. Paul Canada, past district governor of our Lions Club, Western Maryland District, 22W. He also helped greet, many of you probably met him tonight. Also, Larry Mundy's widow, Joyce Anthony, helped us pull things together. And boy, did that flyer that she helped us create, did that make it around the world or what? That's great. Social media is great. Mark Long handled most of that side of it. We appreciate that. Also got a lot of help from Susan Favorite, Albie Little, our resident photographer. He's here. And our president is Bob Johnson. Bob, stand up if you will. Okay, time to get started. Let's just take a moment here and talk about the ground rules. We've asked the candidates to please be positive and respectful, particularly of each other. Ask you to focus, if you will, on why we should vote for you. That's what we need to hear from you tonight. Please speak to the issues, and we have several to talk to you about. And we have a 3-minute time limit on every time you're up talking. And John Hart here, our timekeeper, is going to hold up a yellow card when 2.5 minutes have gone by. But then, when 3 minutes are up, here's what you're going to hear. It'd be hard to drown that out. And for the audience, unlike those debates on television and so forth, you all applaud whenever you want to. We are glad to have you here. Now at this time we're going to draw for the order of speaking. You prepared for that, John? Okay, I'll get us prepared then. I don't have a hat, so we'll start over here. Yes, sir. Okay then, I'll tell you who's who now. Nancy Wallace is number 1. Dan Cox is number 2. Jamie Raskin is number 3. Or 4, sorry. Jason Wonder's number 3, sorry. Okay, now from here on, after the first talk, we're going to rotate this so that everybody has a chance to go first. And I've been reminded to use the microphone. We'll ask you all to observe that 3-minute time limit, and we will rotate who goes first each time after each portion of the program. And the first part of the program tonight has to do with you. We would like for you, candidates, to please tell us in 3 minutes why we should vote for you. Nancy?
Thank you very much, George, and thank you so much to the Lions Club for sponsoring this. I've been somewhat surprised at relatively few full-scale forums in this general election, and they really picked up about 3 weeks ago, but this was one that was, as far as I could tell, one of the best organized in terms of outreach, preparation, information, emails, the place. It was just beautifully run from our point of view. I was born in New York, and at the age of 6 months, my parents moved to Bethesda, Maryland. And at that time, Bethesda was the outer suburb of Washington, D.C. Truly, and I have very early memories actually of dirt roads being paved. And we used to go, my older brothers and I, to the local Arabian horse farm, which if you go down 495 and take the River Road exit going in towards Washington, the first residential development on the right is Al-Marah, and that's because it used to be horses. And I grew up both in the school system, the public school system, and also spending a lot of time out in the woods. And so growing up in the woods as a child, I became very educated about the beautiful, incredible complexity and the beauty of our natural world. Watching the snowdrops come through the snow, watching the birds build their nests, the leaves fall, the tortoise slowly make their way up the little ravine. All of the wonderful aspects, and even how the fungus works in the soil, and as I grew older and through school, learned more and more about biology. And of course, blossomed out into all sorts of other interests in terms of history, politics, literature. And I was lucky enough, my parents took all of us down. What do you do with 4 kids? You take them down to the National Geographic lectures. And I actually got to hear Leakey and Jacques Cousteau and all those heroes of our time trying to communicate the exquisiteness of our world to us. And so I was interested in politics, and my degree's in political science from Yale University. I can say that because there's another Ivy Leaguer up here as well. I tried law school for a year, didn't like it, went on and lobbied in politics. My full bio is on the website, nancywallace.us. Last Christmas morning, I woke up and it was 70 degrees outside. Christmas morning. I knew that just drove deep into my soul and my bones, something had to be done. I knew the facts about climate change. So I decided that since our spot was empty for the Green Party, I was going to run. And it's been a fantastic experience.
I think you heard that bell. Okay, Dan, could you come up and talk to us?
Thank you, George. Thank you to the Lions Club and to my hometown of Thurmont, those who came out tonight. Thank you for being here, to the honorable guests and distinguished members of government here. It's truly an honor. I am running for District 8 because I have 8 reasons. My 8 children. I have 4 boys, 4 girls, and I tell you, we haven't been to Germany and Switzerland yet, but it's something that's on our list, so I wanted to, before I forget, welcome, it looks like almost 30 of you here from Germany and Switzerland, and all the others. I met some folks tonight from Kensington and Leisure World that I've met before on the campaign trail. Thanks for coming out tonight. But you know what? The future is at stake. Freedom is not free. That's a campaign motto that I've embraced. And you know, Ronald Reagan said that freedom is always only one generation away from extinction. That today is where we stand. And I'm running because our children need to have a future with leaders that they can trust, that are going to follow the law. So I'm looking at three main points: freedom and the rule of law, that will hold Congress and the executive accountable, and the courts accountable through vigorous oversight, so that we don't have what we had the last 8 years of the IRS investigating political opponents. We don't have issues regarding two sets of laws, one for you and me, and one for the other guy. Just to let you know who I am, I grew up on a farm. I actually won Grand Champion Market Lamb. I was in beef and market lambs right over here in the Catoctin High School FFA. I was privileged and honored to work on dairy farms, and I see some of my, looks like my old boss in the audience. I hope I've measured up there. And I worked my way through college, and then I went on to law school because I was tired of our freedoms being destroyed, and I wanted to do something about it. And today you have a choice. I stand for freedom and national security and jobs and small business. Right now in Frederick, the EPA has targeted the stained glass manufacturing industry. Just one little industry. The entire industry could shut down because of the regulations that have now been promulgated. There are 3,000 business regulations coming down the pike right now. I'd like to end that. And lastly, gun rights. I stand for the Constitution. And we'll get into this maybe some more, but I am not in any way supportive of my opponents. Even this year, Mr. Raskin introduced 4 bills to restrict gun rights. Senate Bill 944 is one of them. Most of them were either unfavorable or not voted on. That's pretty extreme. So thank you so much. I look forward to discussing everything tonight.
And now we will ask Jason Wonder to come forward.
Hello, thank you for having me. My name is Jason Wonder. I'm 34, the father to 3 small children. I'm married. I'm a paramedic for Johns Hopkins Critical Care Transport Team on the pediatric side. And there's a few reasons why you should vote for me. But I'd rather talk about the reasons why you should vote for me, that things that I won't do versus what I will do. I won't accept full pay. I don't think Congress should be making more than the average citizen. Therefore, I will not take any more than $56,000 per year, which is the national median income. I will only serve one single 2-year term. We should not have career politicians. I will not send my children nor your children to any more wars that the U.S. does not need to be involved in. I will not arrest anyone for drugs. Anything that you put in your body is your own business. If you have not harmed anyone, you are not victimizing anybody, it is not a crime to do with your body what you choose to. I will not allow the NSA to spy on you. I will not sign any bills that allows them to tap your phones, read your emails, or do any of that. I will also not take anyone's guns away. Guns are very important, and I understand that in a room full of a lot of Democrats, that is a hot topic, but it is a constitutional right for you to own your firearm. Criminals do not obey laws. Therefore, you should not be taking the honest citizens' guns away. Thank you.
And finally, Jamie Raskin.
Thank you to all the Lions. Thank you to Mayor Kennard for your warm hospitality. I don't know if he's still here. The commissioners, Hamrick and Burns, and I also see the chair of the Frederick County Democratic Party here, Myrna Whitworth. So thank you for coming out. And to our friends from Germany and Switzerland, they first called me and asked could they come follow us, do some stuff on the campaign trail. And I said, why don't you come up to this debate? It's going to be a lot of fun. They called back and said, can we bring the people from Switzerland too? And I said, gee, you know, I knew our district was gerrymandered, but Switzerland. So anyway, but I'm psyched that we got those 3 rows of our friends from Germany and Switzerland here. My name's Jamie Raskin, and I am the state senator from eastern Montgomery County, Silver Spring and Tacoma Park. And I'm a professor of constitutional law at American University, which is what I've been doing for 25 years. I'm married to my wife, Sarah Bloom Raskin, who couldn't be with us tonight because she's still working. She works at the Department of the Treasury. We have 3 kids who've all grown up now, and they're off in college and everything. So we're empty nest people, which is what allows me to run for Congress this year. Let's see, well, so I've been teaching for 2.5 decades. Constitutional law, First Amendment law, and legislation. I've also done some pro bono work for students facing censorship in school, for environmental groups, for people standing up for their civil rights and their civil liberties. I also represented Ross Perot when he was unfairly excluded from the presidential debates. And so I've had 2 categories of plaintiffs. I told Mr. Perot, I said, I've got 2 kinds of clients that I represent, pro bono and pro bono, and you're going to pay for all the rest of them. And I continue to try to take cases every now and then when I can. But 10 years ago, I ran for the state Senate. And I ran against the machine. I ran against a 32-year incumbent who was president pro tem of the Senate. Everybody told me it was crazy, it was impossible. They said I was going to have to leave Maryland when it was all over. But by running a grassroots campaign, going door to door, and going out and engaging in education, which is what I think politics is really all about, we were able to get 67% of the vote in the primary. And I've been reelected 3 times by more than 99% of the vote, which is easy to do when nobody runs against you. I just, okay. The General Assembly's enacted more than 120 of the bills that I introduced, more than 90% of them with bipartisan support, Republicans and Democrats together. The very first bill that I got passed was to allow for direct wine shipment into Maryland and to allow our wineries to ship out, to open up the market in wine in Maryland. I'm very proud of that. And the last bill that I introduced that got passed in this last session was Noah's Law to compel the use of ignition interlock devices for drunk drivers in this state.
Thank you all 4 for a very fine set of speeches. We appreciate that very much. We're going to move now to the question part of the forum. And I wanted to tell you just a little bit about how that's going to work. We're going to have you have the same amount of time for each one, and as I said, we're going to rotate the opportunity to go first. Also, if we have time, we'll entertain some questions from the audience as well, but we hope we'll have time. So we're going to start with this question. I don't have to tell you candidates and this audience that you're in the northern part of Frederick County where agriculture is vitally important. And that includes the wineries that you just mentioned, Mr. Raskin. And we need to know how you all feel about taking care of our farming families, making sure they have a good livelihood. And we would begin with Dan Collins.
Thank you. I'm honored to help farmers. I live on a small farm. I'm absolutely behind farming. I absolutely will support and defend the individual right that each of us have to grow crops, to raise animals without overregulation and abuse, to produce the products and bring it to market without an oppressive governmental regulation coming down on you. Unlike my respected opponent, Mr. Raskin, who sponsored legislation just this year to require chicken manure to go through a permitting process and to force the organizations that were the companies that haul away manure to go through a licensing and permitting in order to remove that manure. That's burdensome. I also absolutely don't agree with any kind of regulation that would stipulate to small farmers that you can or can't have a number of, certain numbers of animals on your property. And that's something that my opponent is behind. He actually sponsored a no eating meat week. And I think that's a direct attack on our right and our ability to freely bring meat to market. So I think that, you know, when you look at the climate the farmers are in right now, we're in a tough market. We have opportunities, but at the same time, we've got an incredible amount of regulation that's stifling our ability to make the money to actually keep those farms open. So I want to eliminate those regulations to the bare necessity to make sure that our farmers are protected at all costs. Thank you.
Now, Jason Wonder.
Thank you. How do we save our farmers? How do we help them? By getting the government out of their everyday lives, by not taxing their equipment as much, by not taxing the fuel that they use to move their equipment, by not, as Mr. Cox said, regulating the hell out of them with what kind of animals they can have, where they can have them, how they can grow their crops. Allow farmers to farm. It worked a long time ago. People used to work the farms, and they were very prosperous, and I'd like to get back to that same time period. Allow them to do what they do. Farmers are smart, they can work hard, and they can solve their problems. Thank you.
And Mr. Raskin, your turn.
Thank you. So agriculture remains Maryland's #1 industry. Even in 2016, we got 12,000 farms in the state, $1.2 billion of economic production from agriculture in the state. Here in Frederick, there are more than 1,000 farms that exist. And I'm going to view it as a very important part of my job, if I'm elected, to represent the agrarian interests and the farmers who are in our district, not the big corporate concerns, because they've got an army of lobbyists and lawyers who are already doing their bidding, but the small farmers who are actually trying to make a living by running a family farm. I've been a huge champion for environmental legislation to protect the Chesapeake Bay, which is the source of a lot of our economic livelihood, an important ingredient in our history, in our culture, and the life of the state of Maryland. And those who would just say, and I respond to my dear friend from the Libertarian Party, it'd be great if we could just say, let's remove all the laws and regulations and everything will work out. Unfortunately, people will treat it, and this was discovered by conservative and liberal economists in the 18th century, will treat it like a garbage dump. And that's called the tragedy of the commons. So the reason that we have law, and we're all committed to law together, is because we want to protect what we have in common, our commonwealth. And that's what we're doing with the Chesapeake Bay. And I'm incredibly, passionately committed to the cleanup of the Chesapeake Bay, and we're moving in the right direction, and the cleanup of our rivers and our streams and our creeks. And so I'm proud that I was part of the corrective legislation on stormwater, which now gives us a very strong stormwater program across the state, like the one that has existed in Montgomery County for several decades, because what happens is the rains come, and they're coming with ever greater ferocity because of climate change, and they bring into our waterways all manners of soot, gas, oil, dirt, and so on. So it would be great if we could just stick our head in the sand and say, well, no problem, let it happen, but then that ends up in the bay, and then it ends up in our drinking water, and so on. So we've got to do the responsible thing for all the citizens, but also for the farmers who depend on the quality of our land, our air, and our water. And I reject the idea that somehow the interests of the environment are opposed to the interests of our farmers. I think it's the exact same interests. Thank you.
You've probably never met a Green Party member before, so let me just say with reference to this question, we're the only party in the United States that does not accept a penny from any corporation, PAC, or union, to the right of the spectrum or the left. And with respect to small businesses, I would point out that we are the only one that is not taking any funds and will not take any funds from the large chemical corporations which are trying to continually sell sterile seeds and then pesticides which you then have to develop resistance against the pesticide in the plants. And also not from agribusiness. Right now, the Farm Bill in the United States, about $5 billion of tax money per year given away, 80% of which is for corn, the remaining 20% for 4 other grains. So these are all grains and not a single penny for fruits and vegetables. Now fruit is apples are a major crop around here. And while other farmers are getting a huge subsidy from these big corporations, the fruits and vegetables producers are not. The Green Party has 10 key values in the United States. There's a brochure on the back, and number 5 is decentralization, and that means breaking up the large concentrations of power, wealth, government, and military power. We are not right or left in this. We believe in centering human beings back at the core of our culture, society, and our business. Community-based economics, also something called steady state. You can see steadystate.org. And sustainability are the key. And we, all of our, not just tonight, but we are always focused on small businesses and small farms. Not just because that's how you take care of the soil, and that's how you take care of your family, but that's how you take care of your community. People come in units of one, not in these large faceless groups in the city. I would also like to say that we support the government leading and advocating and funding a transition to organic farming. Farmers should not have to be exposed to toxic chemicals, and in order to increase production, to compete in a market against organic farms, and organic soil is essential to capturing carbon to fight climate change. My number 1 issue, and generally of this overarching crisis we're in right now, is climate change. So helping small farms move to organic, which will help the health of the families, help our streams, help the Chesapeake Bay. This means saying no to big corporations, not taking any PAC or corporate money, and going ahead to the vision of what we can be, and not getting stuck in this paralyzed situation of our current political environment. Thank you.
Well, we sure are learning a lot about our candidates tonight. And our next question is a very important question to everybody in this room. And that has to do with the federal role in education. And that's been up in the air for numbers of years. We have teachers that are concerned about it. We have parents that are concerned about it. And we certainly have grandparents that are concerned. So we're very interested in knowing your views about the federal government's role in education. And we'll begin with Jason.
The federal government has no role in education. It should be divided down to the states and to the counties. Now, everyone talks about Common Core. Common Core is horrible. I don't agree that we should have one national standard, but I also don't think that the way they're teaching our children is horrible either. From what I understand, it helps you with calculus and trigonometry in the math section as you go on, but that should all be done at a local level. I would like to get rid of the Department of Education, mandate it down to the states or to the county, and allow them to compete with each other and to have their own standards, so that counties can have their own standards. Like, because what works in Washington County may not work in Baltimore City. What works in PG County may not work in Anne Arundel County. So get it out of the federal government's hands and put it down to the local level. Thank you.
And next, Jamie, your turn.
Thank you so much. I brought a prop for you this one. I'm a professor of constitutional law, and I've written several books, but one of the books, which actually I brought tonight for Mr. Cox's children, who've been such good sports on the campaign trail and come to so many debates. I think they get the Loyal Debate Listener Club Award, but it's called Read the Students, and it's about all the Supreme Court cases that affect young people in school and growing up in the United States of America. So this whole area is a passion of mine, and of course, constitutionally, if you look at Article 1, Section 8, education is not one of the things that's specified as an enumerated power of Congress. So if Congress gets involved, it's got to get involved through some other reason of being involved, and equal protection has been the main avenue by which the federal government's gotten involved, and I think to great effect. For example, Title IX, which says that school systems may not discriminate against girls and young women in athletics or in any other educational opportunity. Now, I think that's an excellent deployment of congressional power under Section 5 of the 14th Amendment to guarantee that we're spending equally for athletics for boys and girls in school. And I actually introduced legislation in Maryland to make sure that there were equal programming opportunities for boys and girls who were in our juvenile facilities, because the boys were getting science classes and computers and the girls were getting home economics, if you can believe that, in the year 2013 and 14. Also, the IDEA, which protects the rights of disabled students. That's been an incredible step forward for our country to guarantee that kids who are disabled, who have some kind of learning disability, actually get a plan. That they get the IEP, the individualized educational plan, that the school system has an obligation to deal with them. And that's empowered and opened up lots of opportunities for lots of people who before might have just been shunted off someplace on the theory that they couldn't learn. When we talk about the federal role in education, we also can't ignore the First Amendment, because it was under the First Amendment that the Supreme Court said back in 1962 in Engel versus Vitale that it is no part of the business of a public school to be composing religious prayers and imposing prayers on children in the school, because there's kids from lots of different religions and different perspectives and different faiths out there. Now, some people have said this was the downfall of America because it banned prayer in the public schools, but I always say the Supreme Court did not ban prayer in the public schools. There will always be prayer in the public schools as long as there are pop math quizzes, because anybody can pray whenever they want. All the Supreme Court said is that the school bureaucrats can't compel you to pray in their way. So let's not forget the great First Amendment. Thank you.
And next, Dan Cox.
Thank you. Well, I think that we need to relieve the stress on parents and teachers by reducing the influence of the federal government in education. I think very specifically, we've got a problem with Common Core. I don't support Common Core. I think we have a problem with forcing on teachers mandates that are just not do not comport with the schedule that they might have, or the right or the ability that they want to pursue for teaching their children. I would like to increase instead parental involvement. As somebody who has spent over a decade in private education as a registrar, I've had the opportunity to work with kids, and I can tell you that one of the things that kids need are more local involvement. They need parents to be involved. We need to encourage that. We need to take a step back from the Washington knows all mentality and seek to impose standards like Common Core and like the recent controversy with the transgender bathrooms. I think we need to be very protective of our children, and that's missing in Washington today. I want to mention, as to prayer in schools, I agree, there will be prayer in schools as long as there's pop math quizzes. However, that's not always the case. As a constitutional litigator for the last decade, I've had the opportunity to work on cases where teachers have and coaches have sought to voluntarily pray with some students that requested it and have been fired. At this very moment, my opponent, Mr. Raskin, has taken funds from an atheist group that is suing Carroll County to eliminate First Amendment speech in regards to voluntary prayer. And the organization that has given over $22,000 to Mr. Raskin's campaign has actually sued to remove "under God" from the pledge, and has sued and has supported suing. Look, I'm glad Raskin supporters are clapping, because this is the difference between my esteemed opponent and myself. I absolutely believe that without God, we don't have a moral compass for our kids. So, and additionally, they sought to sue and lost to take "In God We Trust" off the money. So I think these are essential issues. I would like to go and fight hard for our families. Kids are dying of heroin today, and we're arguing over transgender bathrooms. That's inappropriate. We need to protect our kids.
And Nancy.
I think my response on this will be a good example of how the Green Party comes up with a different, somewhat objective perspective on this. I support application of core social and legal values to the institutions of our schools. So those areas where Mr. Raskin has mentioned, I believe, where it is appropriate for the federal government to be involved. The desegregation of the Southern school system, for instance. One of the key attorneys of Brown versus Board of Education actually passed away today. And so we have had wonderful progress with federal assistance. Right now, I have serious questions, and I don't think I support the core curriculum. I think that this is, and we have another factor going on in schools, which is the corporate influence in schools. I don't know if many of you have not been in there, you can actually see advertising, direct advertising on television in many school systems where corporations are in there. They're also trying to tell the school systems that the students should be trained for technical jobs starting in high school, and the concept of a free, open, liberal education in high school and even through college is rapidly, is being pressured. I won't say it's rapidly dwindling yet, but it is dwindling. I also think in terms of education, there's a huge problem with early childhood educators not being adequately paid. This issue has not gotten the national attention. These are the most vulnerable, the 2, 3, 4-year-olds of our time. Their learning patterns for life are often set during these years. And an early childhood educator in our school systems with a master's degree is often earning minimum wage. These are often women, and this is generally a discriminatory process. If it's child care, it's not that important. Well, it's the opposite. It's super important. And our teachers should be the most valued in our school systems, in our societies. I do not support the high-end, high-stakes testing that has been introduced through the National Education Initiative. And I would also say that I've mentored an inner-city family in DC for 22 years. They're my children, my 3 children, they're now young adults. I started with the oldest when he was 10 and the youngest when she was born. And I've worked with them, mentored them academically and through life through all these years. And all 3 of them are alive, not on drugs, and have graduated from college, and 2 of the 3 have gone to, graduated from high school, 2 of the 3 have gone to college. The middle one stopped going to funerals when he was 15 years old because he had already been to 20 funerals. How do you study when 20 of your friends have died? The survival rate of a young black male in Washington, D.C. is lower than the survival rate of a black soldier in World War II. The context, the racism, the inequality of our society poisons our educational context. Thank you.
At this point, I want to thank our candidates for sticking to the time limits. That's fantastic. I know that bell's hard to beat, but we're thankful that you're going by the rules. We appreciate it very much. In this part of our county and this part of our state, one of the biggest single concerns is immigration. The federal government plays a great big role in immigration. And when you get to Congress, we'd like for you to tell us how you're going to deal with that. We'll start with Dan Cox.
Thank you. I'm going to do one thing well and a whole bunch of other issues that are connected. I'm going to secure the border now. The border is a flood, an open door for heroin. It's an open door right now, and my opponent supports an open border plan. It's an open door for loss of jobs. It has to be stopped. We have to secure the border, and I support a 10-point approach to that for a comprehensive solution. I also do not support voting rights for non-citizens like my opponent, Mr. Raskin. He actually sponsored the bill MC 2516 this year to change the Maryland Constitution to allow illegal aliens to vote. Now, he'll tell you this is not illegal aliens, but the Tacoma Park bill that he sponsored and is actually law in Tacoma Park does not require an ID in order to register to vote. Now, it says it does, but if you flip the application over, the ACLU will sue if you ID check somebody at the polls. Okay, and it says that if you submit the document outside of Tacoma Park, you could be deported. You could have immigration consequences. That's unacceptable. I want to secure the border. I want to do it with vigor and follow a comprehensive approach that takes into account all the necessary things that we need to make sure people are protected. And I absolutely believe that will protect our kids. I mean, look, we've got a future ahead of us that if we don't secure the border, we don't have a country. And that has to be done. And so I look forward to enjoying the opportunity to fighting for this nation by making sure that we address the immigration problem and secure our jobs and protect our families. So thanks.
Now, Jason Wonder.
I also would like to secure the border, but not with men with guns. I want to secure it so immigrants can come over easier. We need more immigrants in this country. They need to come to this country because they work. They bring They're not rapists, they're not murderers. Some are. Most of them are not. I would like to make it much easier to come in. A one-page application, a very small fee for a quick background check. I don't want them to have to subject themselves to crawling under tunnels, going in through boats. This country was founded upon immigration. Putting up a wall, a fence is just asinine. So I would absolutely deny any bill that would come my way. I would never sign like that. Easier immigration will solve a lot of those problems. And also, we should change the Pledge of Allegiance. We should get rid of "In God We Trust," under God. But the money should go back to what it originally said, and that was "Mind your business." Thank you.
Jamie, it's your turn.
So, we are a nation of immigrants, and when the French gave us the Statue of Liberty, it showed us how we are regarded around the world. And Tom Paine said during the American Revolution that America would be a haven of refuge for people fleeing religious and political persecution from all over the world. And that we have been. And for a long time, Jason's vision was in fact the law. People were just coming over. But we are a nation of immigrants, but we're also a nation of laws. And I believe in our immigration laws for a whole bunch of reasons. A lot of them are environmental in nature. There's so much oppression and authoritarianism around the world, and religious violence and sectarianism, that I don't know that we could handle everybody fleeing everything, including climate change. So I think we need immigration laws, but we need comprehensive immigration reform now. This is part of the political impasse that's been brought to us by Republicans in Congress. And I'm sorry, it's the first thing of a partisan nature I've said, but Senator McConnell said the moment that President Obama was nominated, his number one goal, the number one goal of his party would be to prevent the success of the Obama administration, to stop the president from getting things done. We have been waiting and fighting for immigration reform for many years, and I'm hoping that the American people finally are going to wake up and realize who wants progress and change, and who's stonewalling and obstructing everything. And we are going to be able to get a Congress and a president that are devoted to really dealing with the immigration problem in a serious way. And George, if you'll permit me just a point of personal privilege, you asked us to be positive and respectful in this debate, and I have tried to honor that every second, no matter how much I've been tempted to deviate from that course, and I will not now deviate from that course. But I want to say this, for anyone who's really interested in my views on the fascinating issue of non-citizen voting, check out the law review article I wrote in the Pennsylvania Law Review called Legal Aliens, Local Citizens, the Historical, Constitutional, and Theoretical Meanings of Alien Suffrage, which I published more than 20 years ago, and it's open for everybody to read. Nobody ever reads it anymore, so I invite you to read it. It makes my views perfectly clear. For most of American history, non-citizens could vote in local elections as long as they were white male property owners over the age of 21. And then when we dismantled the race and gender and property barriers, people began to say, let's put up a citizenship barrier, which is fine for municipalities that want to do it, and for those who don't want to do it, they don't have to. And that's what I wrote about, and I invite all of you to check it out. And I'm proud that Tacoma Park decided that we could invite everybody who lives in Tacoma Park, who's there lawfully, to vote in our local elections. And guess what? We've not been overrun by votes, and everything's going great in Tacoma Park.
Immigration is a wonderful part of our tradition from our point of view. It's not so great from the Native Americans' point of view. And I would point out that our presidential candidate of the Green Party, Jill Stein, and our vice presidential candidate, Ajamu Baraka, just had criminal arrest warrants issued against them in North Dakota when they spray painted a bulldozer and a backhoe in support of the Native Americans there, protesting the colonization, the continuing colonization of their sacred lands. This is an oil pipeline. There have been 3,000 Native Americans camping for 6 months to preserve their native lands against an oil pipeline that, of course, does them no good. So I'm proud to be with a party that looks at all the scope of immigration. I also think that while we do need immigration laws here, as we have seen with 3 amnesties so far, and with 400 years of immigration, the problem is not us. Our laws, our discussions end up being band-aids for people to comfort themselves here. The suffering that is generating this immigration is what needs to be our primary focus, and we need to, my approach to immigration is to try and deal with the root cause, which is why people can work for 8 hours a day in Lima, Peru, and not earn enough to pay the bus fare to and from their job. The suffering that goes on is invisible, and I want to speak right now to the suffering, particularly of women and girls. In 1954, Guatemala elected its first democratically elected government. It came in and it decided that it was going to end an international monopoly on its primary export. And the country with that monopoly sent in their military, wiped out the government, and destabilized the country. And ever since, that's been a source of immigrants to the United States. It was United Fruit Company, it was the banana monopoly, and we sent in the Marines. Is that the best America can do? I think reorienting our foreign policy to sustainable development, promoting women and girls' rights, education, medical care, and anti-corruption, including taking full responsibility and reorienting our own role of our, not just our military, but also in our development, but also our intelligence agencies, which are essentially at this point free agents in terms of global politics and destabilizing countries whenever it's convenient for us. The oil wars that we've started, the CIA generally has funded and provided weapons for the Taliban, as we know. We really need to look at the facts of what's causing the problems, and more importantly, what is the solution? And I think the solution is putting women and girls at the heart of America's foreign policy and realizing that developing these countries to provide decent wages and safe environments is the best immigration policy for us.
Four great answers to that important question. Now the next question, the fourth question, is a subject that all of us are very concerned about. here in America, probably less so than our friends from Germany and Switzerland. We have a real crisis in healthcare. It seems like it's never solved. So please put on your best thinking caps and tell us when you get to Congress what you're going to do to make sure our healthcare is assured and affordable. We'll start with Jason.
Thank you. Deregulation. Now, it's not a popular thing, especially in this room, but deregulating the healthcare industry will help. Healthcare is skyrocketing because of regulation, because you have to tax with the Affordable Care Act, devices. Devices get a 2.2% tax. You also have to get the government completely out of it, bring it down to a state and local level when it comes to Medicare and Medicaid. No more federal government involvement in it. Thank you.
I think Jason's helping us make sure we got time for more questions here. We appreciate that. Jamie, you're next.
Thank you very much. Well, first of all, I'm proud to be the standard bearer in this campaign for the party that brought America Social Security, the greatest anti-poverty program in the history of the country. And I'm proud to be the standard bearer of the party that fought for Medicare and Medicaid, which tens of millions of Americans depend on. And I'm also proud to be running as the nominee of the party that brought us the Affordable Care Act, as flawed and as imperfect as it is. Now, President Obama said if we were starting from scratch, we'd go with single payer. That's what I support. It works in Germany, doesn't it? It works in the UK, it works in Canada, it works in France, it works all over the world. That's what we really needed. Now, if there's any fault I find with President Obama, it's that he went way over to try to compromise with people who were set out to destroy his agenda from the beginning. And he said, let's pick a Republican plan, the one that Mitt Romney had in Massachusetts, the one that the Heritage Foundation cooked up, and that became the Affordable Care Act, which left the private insurance companies basically in control. Now, what do we need to preserve from the Affordable Care Act? Well, the fact that they can't kick you off insurance because you have a pre-existing condition. That's what we fought for. The fact that you have a pre-existing medical condition is the reason that you should be covered, not the reason that you should be dropped in a civilized society, right? The fact that 25-year-olds can be kept on their plan, that's because the Democrats fought for it. The Republicans fought to keep the private insurance companies in power and control, so we now have 28 cents or 30 cents on the dollar going to bureaucracy. So I'm going to fight to make the plan much more affordable, to lower the deductibles, to lower the copays, and to move America to the kind of system that is working all over the civilized world, which is a single payer plan. We can learn from the rest of the world in this respect. There are clearly problems with Obamacare, but those problems were put in by the people who want to tear the whole system down right now. Thank you.
What the Green Party has to say.
I'm very proud to be the nominee of the party that supports universal health care, and our presidential and our U.S. Senate candidates are both medical doctors. Dr. Jill Stein for president and Dr. Margaret Flowers for U.S. Senate. It was as a result of her 25 years as a pediatrician taking care of children that Dr. Stein realized that we had to go after the more subtle influences that are really determining America's health right now, the so-called conditioned diseases, the autoimmune diseases. And what we've really got here is healthcare becomes a fix-it system for corporate poisoning. I know that's a strong term, but environmental health groups indicate that about 80% of our cancers are caused by environmental factors. We each encounter 100,000 human-made chemicals every year. And again, going back to kind of, this is all part of the package with safe energy, no coal burning, no mercury, no nuclear power. We switch to a Green New Deal economy and organic farming, and we go back to basically where our grandparents and our great-grandparents were. Healthcare needs to, our policy nationally needs to focus first on health, and that means not taking any money from corporations and regulating them so they can't put poisons in our air, food, and water. In terms of the healthcare plan itself, I would immediately co-sign onto HR 676. There would be no indication of my support for any reduced affordable copay or affordable deductions, because the fact is we've got 120 Americans right now dying every day from lack of universal health care. We really need to focus on health, not sickness, and I think this is really actually one of the core issues of the Green Party. And I don't know if you know, but health payments or medical payments right now are the leading cause of mortgage foreclosures, kicking families out on the street. So this is something where we can't just nickel and dime it down to lower this and lower that. And quite a few of the premiums this year are going up by 25%. Even some of the Democrats in Congress have just introduced what's called the public option with respect to the Affordable Care Act, where they'll take all the sick people and they'll put them on the public option where you and I take care of the cost, and then the insurance companies under this Obama's Affordable Care Act, the insurance companies will just keep the healthy people. Again, we've got an absolutely over concentration of corporate power and I'm sorry, this is just one instance where the Democratic administration has let corporations write the bill. The Trans-Pacific Partnership is another. The new $20 billion program in the Department of Defense to refurbish our large nuclear weapons and start development of a whole new generation of small nuclear weapons. You can check the New York Times on this, which should be more likely to use. So health begins way before the health system. Thank you.
A matter of very important note here. Oh, I'm so sorry. Dan, it's your turn. I wonder why you were standing up.
We can skip me and move fast here. 5 quick things. Number 1, competition across state lines. Number 2, personal ownership of your policies, a lot like a car insurance policy, where you decide what you want to have in your coverage, rather than someone else telling you what you have to accept, like is going on under Obamacare. I would also want to open up the Medicare Part D, I think it is, which allows for should allow, it doesn't now, but it should allow for the government to negotiate down your medicines, because that's outrageous. Number 4, we need to tighten up tort lawsuits. I think frivolous lawsuits are a danger, and it's a cause. And number 5, tax credits for small businesses and businesses, so that, you know, when I hire somebody and I pay for a nice policy for them, I shouldn't be taxed on that. I need to get a tax credit. Let me just tell you, we don't want to move to single payer. Where will Canada go for their medicine? I mean, okay. Think about this for a second. I'm absolutely dedicated to fighting for our veterans to improve our VA. I had a lady come up to me at the Wounded Warriors event in the Frederick Fairgrounds, and she said that her son went to the VA, and this is, you know, look, my aunt is a nurse at the VA. The VA has some great staff, but it's got a leadership problem. But this lady said that her son, she begged me, please address the problem of the VA, because her son went, texted her, he's an Iraq war veteran, and texted his mom, he's having some emotional difficulties. She said, get to the emergency room. Go, so he drove to the VA. He checked in. The lady said, we don't have any way to take you right now. You'll have to come back in a week. He went out in the parking lot and killed himself. That's the kind of thing that single payer, government dictated, improper leadership will end up causing on our people. I want to go to Washington and fix the VA. I want to improve it, allowing for people who are veterans that need care to get it. If the VA can't give it to them, they should be able to go to a hospital and have it paid for. That needs to happen right away.
I'm sure the veterans here in this area appreciate that. Our next question has to do with something that is very, very polar in terms of how people feel about it. And so it's important to us voters to know how you feel about it and what you'll do when you get to Congress to help us solve and and deal with this change. And that has to do with climate change. It's become a very important issue across the nation. So we would ask you tonight how you would address climate change. And Jamie, we'll start with you.
Thank you, George. This is not even an issue. It's the overarching context within which we've got to decide every other issue that we're talking about, whether it's trade, transportation, housing, what have you. There are those people in America, and maybe some even on this panel, who deny climate change, who don't think that it's real, or deny the human role in causing climate change. But scientists tell us that the hottest year on record was 2015, after that 2014, after that 2013, for the last decade. The hottest month on record was July 2015, and we are seeing the weather cataclysms, the hurricanes, and the severe weather events multiplying all over the world. Here's the problem. Basically, Adam Smith and liberal economists in the 18th century figured it out long ago. It's called the tragedy of the commons. What we have is big industries, the carbon industries, gas and coal and oil, which are making money by essentially, and they didn't do it on purpose, but they've basically been wrecking the climate that humanity depends on. And they don't pay us anything for it. You see? It's as if they were polluting the oceans or polluting the air and not paying anything for it. So we live in a market system. We've got to monetize it. And so what we need is either what Congressman Van Hollen has been introducing, which is the cap and dividend approach, which is they pay us fees in order to emit carbon, and then that money is redistributed to every American taxpayer and Social Security holder, which is the one that I favor, although the one that's probably got more of a chance is a carbon tax on the carbon polluters, on the industry, not on the people who are the victims of the climate change and have to pay for all of the torrential downpours and hurricanes and storms and so on, but on the industry. So they internalize the cost. It's a basic economic principle. They should be paying for the cost of climate damage so we can invest in the renewable energy systems that will be our salvation as a species. And the scientists are telling us that 80% of owned carbon deposits in the ground have got to stay there if we have any hope of restraining climate change to 2 degrees Celsius by the year 2050. And beyond that, then the scientists tell us that it's an absolute nightmare. Now, there are people who think all of this is fiction, and that's fine, but then you shouldn't pretend that you believe that this is really happening and somehow you're committed to some other approach. We need to be taking very strong, dramatic action, which is why when I announced for this office, I said I'm not taking any money from big oil, big gas, or big coal. Now, they didn't want to give me any money anyway, to be clear. But that approach has given me the independence in office to stand for what we need to do. And what we need to do is to break from the carbon barons and to invest in the renewable energy future that's going to save us.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll hear from Nancy.
We face planetary death. I'm sorry, this is the facts. Dr. James Hansen, who is the leading global warming scientist academically in the United States, has said that we are looking guaranteed at double-digit sea rise now by 2060. This means most of Florida gone, most of Louisiana. Manhattan has to be moved. All of our coastal nuclear power plants have to be decommissioned. It's unimaginable, I understand that. But we need to have the courage to look these scientific facts in the face, come together the way we did in World War II, when we did a great job transitioning the US economy to a war footing in about 18 months. And a lot of that was done by women in the spring of 1943 after so many men had been drafted, I would say. And we can't wait. We can't wait for monetized solutions. We can't wait for carbon tax. It's not just business as usual. It's not even change as usual right now. We have to deal with climate change, and at my website, nancywallace.us, you'll find a 12-point plan. We call for an emergency transition to renewable energy by providing a federal program like the Civilian Conservation Corps in the 1930s to employ 20 million people with good jobs train them, and many of these will be fossil fuel energy sector workers who will be directly employed. We need to be running the solar panel factories 24/7, free panels, free installation, getting up the wind turbines. We clearly have enough energy in the United States through wind, solar, geothermal, tidal, conservation, and microhydro. We have enough energy. We have to come together as an entire nation, as a team, and tackle this. And we can also tackle so many other injustices and inequalities along the way. But it's now, and I call for 100% renewable energy by July 4th, 2020, and we can really have a day of independence on that July 4th. We actually can accomplish that. It is, as I said, it's not change as usual, and each of us has a role to play in that. I'd like to ask all of you to change your houses to wind energy. I don't know if you all realize it, but Maryland and DC, due to deregulation, you can all choose, tonight when you go home, you can switch your house on the internet to 100% wind energy as your background supplier. Your local company will then have to buy its energy. We can do a lot of this change ourselves. We need national leadership, state, county. Montgomery County, where I'm living, has started to put a lot of solar panels on their county buildings. And this is something that just, it's do or die right now. 50% of our oxygen comes from the Antarctic Ocean, from the little phytoplanktons there. We don't know when they stop, at what temperature they stop producing oxygen. So we've got a challenge.
Thank you very much.
Well, there's science on all sides of this, and the end of the earth now scenario is just not scientific at all. But that doesn't mean that we can't improve our clean energy. I'm all for all the above approach. And one of my friends is a commission member, just came back from Paris, the World Nuclear Forum, because we are actually behind the times in building nuclear power plants. How many saw the debate and saw this guy in a red sweater named Ken Bone? He's an internet sensation, okay? Well, what fascinated me about him was that he was a coal worker. And you know what? He asked one of the most important questions to so many of us, and that is, are you basically, to summarize it, we need to be thoughtful of our environment, but at the same time, how are we going to make sure we protect our jobs? And I can promise you this, I will absolutely fight the war on coal in Washington. I can tell you this, there is an opportunity to encourage and expand the coal plants in a safe manner. It's called clean coal. The new technologies are there. And they're even seeking to invent carbon capture technologies to utilize any slight emissions that might be there. Look, we're a great nation. We can be smart about this without a war on our jobs. And the whole idea of panels. Look, solar's great, wind is great. My grandmother grew up in Kansas, and they had a windmill, and they watered their cattle and got their own water that way. So I'm all for all the above. But let me tell you something, you're not going to be able to power our cities with millions of people in apartments and flats with solar panels. It's nonsensical. So I firmly believe that we need to support our power plants to encourage and provide tax credits to protect the jobs, to make sure that these new innovations and technologies can be easily implemented without shutting them down, chasing them with regulations, and preventing them from even starting. Look, France is opening up about 30, my understanding is about 30 power plants that are coming online. I don't know of any in the United States. Now, I'm not an expert on it, but we have a huge gap in this. And part of the reason is the regulations in Washington take, and I saw this, years, up to 7 to 10 years. Now, my opponent supports a carbon tax. It's the #1 issue on his website. You can go to his website to the issues. The #1 issue is a carbon tax. Independent tax experts say it'll cost up to $7 a loaf of bread because it's a tax from the very inception of the wheat all the way through till you get the loaf of bread. The same thing with energy. Look, I can't handle an energy bill for another 30% higher. And I'm saying that in a positive way. We can do better.
Dan is right to some degree. There is arguments on both sides. I do think that the climate is changing. Is it man-made? I'm not sure. But I want to ask everybody a question. Who has solar panels on their roof? Interesting. Interesting. I didn't get it because the government mandated it. I got it because a private company came to my home and said to me, we can save you money. And I had them installed, and I've had them installed for 3 years. Now I'm noticing people up here that are all about renewable energy. Didn't cost me a dime to have them installed. Solar City installed them, didn't charge me a thing. Saved me money on my electric bill. But I see Mr. Raskin and Ms. Wallace don't have it. So I'm curious as to why. If it's such a, why not? Hillary Clinton, we've seen her house, she doesn't have them on hers. And it's a pretty damn big house. So I ask you, if the government is going to mandate it, who do you think is really going to get the money? Do you think he's going to save you guys any money? If the government does, they're going to tax the hell out of you. Why don't you guys get the government out of it, privatize property, people take care of their property when they own it versus it being public, and allow companies to present options to you. I had multiple companies come to my house, and I went with the one that saved me the most money. Thank you.
Very good, thank you, candidate. Our next question tonight is one that would come as no surprise to those of us that live in Thurmont. A matter of great concern, not just to those of us in Thurmont or in North Frederick County, but across the nation, is the Second Amendment matter of gun control. We know that's something that's important to this whole nation. It has many dimensions, and we'll ask Nancy to address that first. How do you stand on federal gun control?
I probably have the most conservative position in the Green Party on this because I support the right to bear arms. I support it not because it's fun or for sports shooting. I support it because I think that the accumulation of power in government is a real threat. And this was the original reason why the founders put that into the Constitution. And interestingly enough, I've learned this because of Guatemala. In Guatemala, where we destabilized the government, and the men, many of the men who care about their families, who are trying to make a good life, they're here, working and often not seeing their families for 10 or 20 years at a time, sending their salaries home and never seeing their children grow up. But what's left in Guatemala is people who don't care. And there's a huge culture of gangs, and there's a war on women and early teen girls. There's a rape culture in Guatemala that's not been reported by our mainstream media. In Guatemala, it's illegal for citizens to own weapons. So there, the police and the gangs own weapons. For that political reason, which was the original reason, I support, in theory and in practice, the right to bear arms. I also recognize that the death toll right now in America today is unconscionable, and that I would support legislation and restrictions which mean that you treat this weapon, which is designed to kill, as or more carefully than you treat your car, your license, and you treat it as carefully as you do buying alcohol. You have to have training. You can only buy from a brick and mortar store. Gun shows should be illegal. The guns themselves can be manufactured with ID in the manufacturing process that can never be erased. That should be a requirement. Child locks. And I also support inspections and audits. That's what really counts. As we know, you go in every year or two for your car to be inspected. I think everyone should have to show their guns once a year or once every 2 years to the government and show that they still possess it and that it's got its child lock on, and they have absolutely full legal accountability if anything happens with that weapon. Thank you.
Dan Collins.
Well, I'm a strong advocate of the Second Amendment. I grew up hunting. I took my son for the first time when he was 4. I had a BB gun. It was a special moment. In fact, he pointed out the deer because I was half asleep. Dad. But the Second Amendment is not just for hunting. It's for not only your personal defense and your right to keep and to bear arms. That means you have the right to carry a gun. It's also the right to defend your home. And it's also the right to defend our country, should that need ever arise. That's what Heller says. That's the case out of D.C., where, God bless him, Justice Scalia and the others upheld our right to bear arms. That's a natural right and a constitutional right. I very much support it, and I think that my concern in this race has been that issue, and foremost in the mix, because my opponent was the author of the Maryland gun ban. He had one of the largest sweeping gun bans in the nation passed under his care, and his wife, very nice lady, I'm sure, she testified for the Connecticut gun ban. And I look at the philosophy that they approach these issues with, and it's one that does not comport with our natural right to keep and bear arms. I do not believe in licensing away a Second Amendment right. If you're going to license that away, you're going to license away the First Amendment? How about the Fifth? How about the Fourth? Where do we stop on the state power to take away our natural and constitutional rights? So I will absolutely stand firm and advocate strongly for our constitutional rights, including the Second Amendment. Thank you.
As a gun owner and an avid hunter, I support the Second Amendment, but I don't support the Second Amendment just for everybody. I support it for the mother of 3 children whose ex-husband is who's gone nuts and is trying to attack her, and she needs to have a gun to protect herself. But if you have to go through the laws of the handgun, it actually requires you to pay $800 for a 1-day class, and then you have to register that gun and wait 8 to 10 days until you can get your handgun. I don't want people who feel threatened to go without the right to defend themselves. I cannot support any Second Amendment legislation that takes guns out of the honest citizens' hands. And I'm asking anybody in here, does anybody own a gun? How many people want to raise their hand? Yeah, I own a few. And I'll tell you, my guns have never harmed anybody. The majority of gun, and I mean 99.9% of gun crimes, are committed by people who don't own the firearm. They're committed by gangs because of why? The drug war. It all goes back to the drug war, the constant drug war that fuels the fire for the gangs, and that's why you were getting so many killings. Look at the numbers. The majority of them are from unregistered illegal handguns, not assault rifles, which, by the way, AR does not stand for assault rifle. It stands for Armor Light. It is a trademark. But you can't regulate that. You're regulating honest citizens. You're not regulating criminals. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As a law professor and a constitutional patriot, I also believe in the Second Amendment and defend the Second Amendment along with the First and the Fourth and the other amendments that we've got. But let's be very clear about what the Supreme Court said in the Heller decision. What it said is that the purposes of the Second Amendment are to guarantee to everybody the right to defend themselves and their person in their home, self-defense, and the right to engage in hunting and recreation. That's it. Okay? Does that give you the right? Does the Second Amendment give you the right to have machine guns? Absolutely not, the Supreme Court has said. Does it give you the right to have a neutron bomb? Those are arms too. Absolutely not, the Supreme Court has said. So, by the way, it's not just the drug war. The dozens of kids who were assassinated at point-blank range by an assault weapon in Newtown, Connecticut, were not killed in the drug war. The people killed in the nightclub in Orlando were not killed in the drug war. The Amish school children who were gunned down in the Amish schoolhouse, not 30 miles away from here, were not killed in the drug war. We lose tens of thousands of Americans every year in homicides, in mass murders, in suicides, and our friends from Europe must think that there is something fundamentally flawed with our governmental system, that we cannot move on something as simple as a universal background check on all gun purchases in the United States of America. My friends on the stage can condemn me for having introduced... the gods of the Second Amendment are with us here. So, look, they could condemn me for having introduced the ban on high-capacity magazines and military-style assault weapons. I am proud of that. I have gotten the support of all of the gun safety groups in America. Now understand, we do not want to take away any guns from anybody who is defending their home, anybody who's engaged in hunting recreation, but more than 90% of Americans, including a majority of gun owners, support reasonable gun safety legislation in the United States, including universal background checks, including the ban on the high-capacity magazines, which no hunter or person defending themselves can explain why they would need that. So, look, the NRA used to be a very reasonable, middle-of-the-road organization that promoted gun safety. You got the Boy Scout patch for marksmanship, and then they got taken over by right-wing Republicans in the 1970s. Read the book called Gunfight about this, and they said, we're going to turn this into a culture war where we're going to try to turn the people in the rural areas against the people in the urban and suburban areas. And it's not to anybody's benefit. Let's pass reasonable gun safety, and let's get back to work on the big issues that we need to be working on.
The radio audience, the pop that you heard was not a gunshot. It was a burst balloon, but it happened at an interesting time. Thank you all very much for your comments on gun control. We're moving now to the 7th question, a very important question to all Americans, and it's a very hot issue in our presidential race. And that is that our economy is affected so much by trade policies at the federal level, corporate tax rates, that kind of thing. We have many, many jobs. When you call a customer service department, you're probably going to get either India or China. We need to fix these kind of things. And so a lot of us here feel that this is a very important issue. So the question is, how will you work to improve opportunities for working people to earn a livable wage? And we'll start with Dan Thomas.
Well, thank you so much. I oppose TPP and NAFTA needs to be reworked. We are losing our jobs very, very quickly, and you've seen it happen. I remember growing up, and there were textile factories and such right in Westminster. There are other job opportunities here in Frederick, and certainly we don't see that anymore. It's a problem. As a small businessman, I have had the frustration of picking up the phone to try to work on my computer, and I get somebody that I can't understand. So I said, well, can you transfer me? Where are you? And it's India. Now I love people of all lands. I absolutely do. But the problem is we have a twofold problem. We have a need for jobs in our country. We need to support that first. I absolutely will do everything I can to make that happen. And secondly, we need to make sure that we're not allowing international corporations to really fleece us. And I think we see that with the TPP, where you have 3 lawyers in a back room that can give away millions and millions of dollars to a foreign company who merely claims in their arbitration efforts that somehow U.S. law discriminated against their right to do business here. And guess who pays that bill? You and me. That's unacceptable. So, you know, when I look at the living wage issue, I absolutely support what I call a maximum wage. As an employer, I always want to pay my employees the best I can, the most I can. And I'm always, you know, just a real small law firm. I've owned my own business for a decade. And I seek ways to improve my employees' opportunities. And I tell you, when I have to set aside double the amounts for navigating through regulation, through paying the tax, and then I hear, you know, my opponent wants to raise FICA caps. That's wrong. 12.4% is already harsh enough, where President Obama lowered that 2 years ago. which I appreciated, and my employees appreciated that. It helped kickstart some things. But I absolutely believe in making sure that we lower regulations, that we make sure we have America first, so that our companies can hire people, and the taxation level is at a lower, flatter rate, the corporate tax brought down, and that way, guess what? Jobs are going to flood back here. It's not just a pie-in-the-sky theory, it's not just some kind of talk that we're hearing in the presidential election. It's reality. As a businessman, I can tell you, when I have more money in my business, I hire more people. That's the bottom line.
Thank you. I believe lowering the corporate tax to zero will help bring jobs back to America, but more importantly, we need jobs overseas. We need companies building in China and places like India because they're cheaper for us. My phone cost me $600. Guess how much it would cost if it was made in America under Trump's plan? $1,200 to $1,400. So if everybody's okay paying that amount, feel free to vote for Trump, vote for Mr. Cox. I am all for free trade. Any company that you can get to make cheaper products to come to America is great for me. I get cheaper products, it's great for the other countries. The Chinese are making money. They're producing phones, they're producing computers, they're producing cars and shirts and clothes. It's great for them, their economy, it's good for our economy. We can put our people to work doing other things. But we need to have a lower corporate tax. We have the highest corporate tax in the world, which is why jobs flee. Thank you.
Jane?
Thank you. We need to restore the besieged American middle class, which means that we need middle class economics and middle class politics. I was very proud that I was one of the lead sponsors of the legislation to increase the minimum wage in Maryland, and we got that done, and that is lifting lots of people up into the middle class in our state. And I will fight for an increase in the middle class. I will fight for an increase in the minimum wage to bolster the middle class in Congress as well. I also absolutely believe that we've got to lift the regressive cap on the FICA tax. Even Donald Trump, who I think my distinguished opponent is supporting, this is the first time I've heard you depart from one of his positions, he's even saying it doesn't make any sense that he stops paying the FICA tax at the point at which his secretary stops paying the FICA tax. That's gonna give us 80% of what we need to make Social Security solvent in the next 20 years. So that strikes me as an obvious thing that we can do. We need to restore the right to organize and collective bargaining in the United States of America. The right of people to organize has been under unremitting hostility and attack in Congress, in the courts, by union-busting corporations across the country. I was with the president of the Steelworkers of Maryland, and I said to him, well, what was your peak membership here? He said, well, it was back in the 70s. There were 140,000 members of the Steelworkers. What is it today, I said. He said 2,000 members in the state of Maryland. Those were good middle-class jobs where people could go on vacation and there was health care attached to it. And all those jobs have gone overseas to Mexico or Indonesia abroad with no adverse tax consequences for the people doing it. Like Donald Trump, by the way, who has his goods made in Vietnam, China, Bangladesh, and Mexico and sent back into the United States. What we need, tying this together with our environmental imperatives, we need a Green Deal for America. It was our party, the Democratic Party, which faced the Depression, the Great Depression, and said, we need to reinvest in America. And we built the New Deal, and we built Social Security, and Medicare, and Medicaid. The next industrial revolution will be a green industrial revolution, and we need to build the infrastructure for that right now, because the infrastructure of the country is corroding and collapsing. The roads, the bridges, I-270, we need to widen 270. The metro system is breaking down. We need to reinvest in the metro system. The water systems, look Look at Flint, Michigan, the port system, cybersecurity. We got KGB and Putin breaking into emails in the United States of America trying to distort our political campaign. That's going on in the year 2016. We need to reinvest in the American infrastructure in a way that advances our environmental priorities. We need a Green Deal for America. Let's put everybody back to work. All of the young people, we need you in this century. We need you. And thanks for coming.
I'm going to walk on the question now, and, oh, I'm sorry, you get a chance to talk, I'm sorry. Getting ahead of myself.
It's one of my favorite topics, too. Jamie, thank you so much for endorsing the Green Deal. The Green Party's been promoting that for 20 years, as I said earlier tonight, the Green New Deal. We have a view in the Green Party of something called community-based economics. And this goes back to what I said earlier tonight about putting people back at the center and the heart of our culture and our economy. Did you know Baltimore has its own currency? There's something called the B-Note. You can go to bnote.org, and they have 4 currencies of 1, 5, 10, and 20. You give them $10 of American currency, you get $11 of Baltimore currency, and 235 businesses will accept that currency. What happens? The profits stay local. What happens with credit unions, cooperatives, employee-owned businesses? This is called the shared economy. Time banks, where $1 of my time can be given to you for a service and $1 of your time I can call on, or anyone else who's signed up for this program. We have 4 time banks in Maryland right now, and a new one starting in DC. There are so many ways for us to work together economically to have a high quality of life if we put the community back at the center. And again, going back to one of our 10 key values, decentralization, breaking up over-concentrations of wealth, power, and government. I strongly support corporations paying their fair tax. It's interesting that we've heard tonight about corporation tax levels being too high, but the big corporations actually often pay no tax. General Electric hasn't paid a penny for 20 years. We need to have the corporations paying their fair share, and then the people can have a reduced tax rate. I support $17 an hour minimum wage. The National Party supports $15. I'm a bit more to the middle class in this, to rebuilding the middle class. If you take the amount of money it takes in Montgomery County to simply not qualify for some public assistance for welfare, to not qualify as poor, it's $17 an hour. $34,000 a year is enough to support one person with some dignity and perhaps even think about a family. It's not a lot. We need to rebuild the middle class with a true living wage, which I just mentioned, either $15 or $17 an hour. We also need to have free college. One of the major reasons that where families pour their precious resources is in trying to get that precious university college education. We support, as Thomas Jefferson did, free 4-year college, and by cutting off the fossil fuel subsidies of tens of billions of dollars a year and the nuclear industry subsidies, we can fund this and cancel student debt. We forgave Wall Street $4.5 trillion. We can spend $1.5 trillion for a whole generation of our students. Thank you.
I'm looking at the clock and noticing we're getting a little restless. I'll not walk on that question that I started, but instead ask our candidates to now talk to us for 3 minutes about your candidacy, what you stand for, and why we should elect you as our member of the House of Representatives. And Jason, you're the man to start.
Thank you. As I said before, I guarantee nobody on this panel will say the things that I'm going to say. I will only serve one single 2-year term. I will only accept $56,000 in pay. I will also not sign a bill that raises taxes, nor invade your privacy, nor send your children to war. But I will also do something that I guarantee none of these guys will do. I'm going to give you my personal cell phone number. If you want to write it down, 410-916-5805. I work for you. You are my employer. You call me 24/7 and ask me anything that you like. And if you don't think so, I have a commercial coming out in a few days in which I repeat my number, and it is also on my website, jasonwonder.org. I work for you. I guarantee none of these guys will give you their cell phone number. Thank you.
And now, Jamie, would you stand? Sure. Thank you.
George, thank you. So let me start with this. This is, I believe, the final debate that we're having, at least the final scheduled debate. And some of us have been at this for 18 months, if you can believe it. So it's a little bit melancholy thinking about all of this coming to an end. I did bring a gift for each of my honored opponents here. One is actually for the Cox family, the aforementioned We the Students. I hope you guys enjoy it and you can use it in your studies. I brought a book for you, Jason, called Our Republican Constitution, Securing the Liberty and Sovereignty of We the People by Randy Barnett, who's a professor at Georgetown, who's a great libertarian scholar. And I brought for you, Nancy, a new book called When Money Talks, The High Price of Free Speech and the Selling of Democracy. So I thought you guys would each enjoy these books. So, and that's in the spirit which you brought us here, of positivity and honesty. And I want to thank the Lions Club for being the only debate sponsor over the last year and a half to insist on a positive and open and honest debate. So I very much appreciate that. And I think I'll close with a thought about the part of public service which I have enjoyed immensely that nobody ever talks about. On the way up, we stopped at a restaurant called Mountain Gate Restaurant for dinner. It was really, we had such a wonderful time there. And one of the servers came up to me and said, I wanted to thank you. And I said, why? And she said, because you introduced the legislation to restore the voting rights for people who've been in prison. And that has meant a lot. And that meant a lot to me. And a lot of what we do, it's big issues that you hear about, things like marriage equality, which I was very proud to be the introducer and the floor leader on. But a lot of what we do, we don't hear about. And it's the constituent service. And I have given everybody my cell phone number, Jason, for the last 10 years. I hate to contradict you, but it's in a positive spirit. I will give anybody my phone number here if they want it tonight. I don't want to use the time right now, but just come up and I'll give you my card and my phone number. But the chance to help people going through different kinds of crises, they're